Our third speaker, Emanuele Angelidis, is a co-founder and CEO of Breed Reply, Europe's leading investor in early-stage Internet and of Things businesses that supports IoT entrepreneurs to quickly bring new ideas to market. He will now present AI in IoT, its role and its importance.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. So, as he said, I'm managing a VC specialized in investments within the IoT and obviously AI space. So what I would like to try and do today is share with you what is our view, what we expect to come from these disruptive technologies. And I will try to do this bringing forward some of the examples we see every single day. Some of those we invest. Razor Secure is a fantastic company within our portfolio. And then we'll see many other opportunities. And most importantly, what is the benefit and the impact for the market? This is very quickly to say what is the value behind IoT and AI. What do we think about when we speak about IoT and AI? On one hand, we have, thanks to IoT sensors, the opportunity to basically collect data on a real-time basis. This is what really makes the difference on a real-time basis. And those sensors, as you know, are spread across everywhere, basically every industry, individuals. But what really matters here is that after we gather all those data, we have to do something with that, right? So, and this is where AI comes into the picture. So the ability to analyze those data on a real-time basis and come up with insights, come up with actions. So the combination of these two factors, so being able to collect the data on one hand and analyze those data and come up with suggestions and actions as well on a real-time basis is what is going to be the game changer, not only in the industries, but also for the consumer market. In economical terms, obviously this is going to be huge. This is going to be a revolution that is going to be much bigger than the mobile revolution that we all experienced over the past 20 years. This is going to be much bigger because if you think about it, the past mobile revolution didn't really have a big impact in the businesses. It mostly changed our way we live, the way we communicate with the other people. But on the business side, yes, some advantages, but not as many as IoT and AI will generate. And I'll give you some examples about this. So this is the outcome of a research made by McKinsey, which in a nutshell is telling us two things. The first one is that we are talking about big numbers. We're talking about $4 to $11 trillion of recurring annual value generated and basically generated through the impact of IoT and AI. And the second thing that you can see here is that basically is cross many sectors. So you can see and pick and choose whatever sector, even humans, obviously individuals, and everybody is positively impacted by this new technology coming forward. If you look at the graph, we have basically three key areas which are impacted. The first one, not surprisingly, is factories, manufacturing. As I said, the business market didn't benefit very much about innovation over the past years. And if you think about factories, here is IoT and AI are going to be even more revolutionary than in the past because obviously everybody talks about Industry 4.0, the new benefits for the industrial markets thanks to IoT and AI. But I think the key point here is that for the first time, differently from the previous three revolutions, we have the chance to have an impact on the product itself. If you think about Revolution 1, 2, and 3, we're mainly about how we produce in a more efficient way, how we do it in a more how do we increase the productivity level? But it was always about the process. It was never about the product produced by the process. So with AI, thanks to the sensors and the ability to analyze the data, we will be able to change in some applications, even the product itself. So it's going to be definitely a game changer for industries. And I'll share with you some examples. Then the second one is basically healthcare. I'm sure you agree with me that every single government has in the top one of the top 3 priorities, how to provide a much better level of healthcare service to the population at a lower cost. Every country is struggling in front of this problem. Again, IoT and AI will be a massive game changer here. The ability to have people with chronic diseases monitored on a real-time basis will enable, obviously, to preempt rehospitalization, improve the quality of life of these people. And as you can imagine, this is a win-win, basically, proposition for all the stakeholders of the same ecosystem. Because all of a sudden, obviously, patients will live a better life, which is the ultimate goal. Doctors will have an understanding of what really happens to their patients, because every time we go to a doctor and they ask us, how are you, what did you do? I mean, the description is a little bit qualitative, right? Well, here there will be a detailed analysis of what really is happening on a real-time basis. And most importantly, the doctors can be alerted if anything is getting to the worst. And so they can act, they can do actions to prevent the worst situation. And obviously, reducing rehospitalization means reducing the cost. So as you can see at the end, the outcome will be much better life for the individuals, much better level of service in general for the stakeholders, and also reduce cost to provide a much better service. And this is possible thanks to this technology. The third element is about smart cities and smart buildings. Again, the concept is pretty much the same. It's providing the community with a much better level of service, as obviously, in this case, not only at lower amount of cost, but really provide services that, as of today, we are not in a position to provide. So think about any type of service within smart cities, going from autonomous cars to obviously applications about the assets across the city to manage, situation where you have stadia, where you have big, infrastructure to be managed in an automatic way, in preempting problems to happen. But obviously, I think we have to keep in mind different steps in order to maximize the value coming out from here, to extract value, first of all, coming out from here. And I would like for each of those give you some examples. So the first one, if we start from the bottom, efficiency. So IoT and AI all together will enable the adopters to improve the level of efficiency. Think about application in the energy space, right? There's a lot of propositions here that enable basically companies adopting these solutions to calculate on a real-time basis the level of efficiency, for example, in the energy consumption of their plants, of their infrastructures. And so obviously this will push the level of efficiency to the maximum. But not only that, in some cases, this will also enable some additional revenue streams. Because if you are a factory and you are in a situation of excess of capacity in terms of energy speaking, then you can resell it to the grid. This is something that you can do it only if you have a real-time control of all the elements of your factories, and you can make sure that reselling some of the capacity in excess is not damaging your production. The second one is productivity. Obviously, productivity, the way I want to address this is from a slightly different angle than the traditional one. And here is more about preemption. So there are a lot of predictive maintenance solutions out there that enable basically companies to avoid unexpected downtimes. There was an article on the FT last week about a big automotive company that was explaining that if in the UK all of their plants are on late by 6 minutes, all of a sudden their business will turn from profitable to break even. Which means that if all of a sudden a manufacturing plant is experiencing a downtime because something goes wrong, a component is broken, a machine is broken, this is going to have a massive impact on their P&L. Having predictive maintenance solutions, which means being able to sniff to gather data from sensors spread across the plant and through artificial intelligence machines be able to predict if something is going wrong or potentially going wrong in the medium term is a game changer. There are some industries or some companies that start adopting some of these solutions, but it's nothing compared to what is going to happen when this will be spread across every single company in the market. The third one is the level of service. So providing a better user experience to the final customer, either business or consumer. I think here with IoT and AI, we have for the first time an unparalleled opportunity to be so close to the end user so that we can even think about designing products for the individual user, either business or consumer. Because we are so close, we know exactly how they are using the service or product. We know exactly what they like, what they dislike. And so we can immediately change this and we can present and propose something which is more in line with the expectation of the end user. This is possible because we are so close to the end user. And the proximity is given by the sensors, the ability to really get the data about how the customer, the user is reacting to the product and service provided to them. The fourth one is new business models. I think the beauty of IoT is that it's going to be so disruptive over the next decades that it's not just a matter of having a new technology enabling to be much more efficient or produce more or provide just a better service. I think we have to embrace this opportunity with the view of developing new business models. Let me give you an example. Let's say, this is a very basic example. Let's say that we have a retail chain with a lot of shops on the market. Right now, maybe the retail chain can be managed with promotions up to the shop. Okay? If a company is very, very efficient, is able to do specific promotions shop by shop. Doesn't happen very much in reality, but this could be done right now. Again, here we go to the next level. There are applications, as you know, that can define through facial recognition, through facial analysis, if somebody is potentially interested in buying something. So imagine the power of being able to, put in place a promotion specifically for that customer, because you know that the propensity of purchase of that customer is very, very high. And you know it because of the way he's looking at an item, because he's going closer to the item, maybe because he's grabbing the item. So these are, changing the way we do business and also changing the way we compete with the other players in the same market. And this goes to the last point, which is the relationship. Also, this is going to change. So far we have been used to traditional customer-supplier relationships. But this is not going to be the case anymore going forward. The relationships between all the stakeholders in the same ecosystems will be based on partnerships. Because thanks to this technology, there will be a win-win proposition for all of them. Let me give you an example here. This example is one of our companies. So we have this company that developed what we internally call Fitbit for cows. So they developed a device that obviously the cow has at his neck and hanging on, obviously, on a necklace. And this device is able to monitor the cow behavior. So is it walking enough, drinking enough, eating enough, ready to get pregnant, ready for milking? This obviously in advance because of the ability to predict what's going to happen. So imagine the impact of this information for all the players of the ecosystems. And I'm saying this because I'm seeing this in practice, because these guys have fantastic contract with big dairy producers. So I can tell you that the impact is on the farmer, obviously, because he knows exactly what happens, and he knows it in advance, what happens to each of his cows, of the cattle. This is an impact with the vets, because they know it in advance if anything is going wrong, and they know exactly also what is going wrong. It has an impact for the feed providers, because they know when they have to bring enough food for the cattle, and obviously has a big impact for the dairy producers for many reasons. One, for example, is the regulation. As you know, regulation is becoming more and more stringent, requiring to have a clear understanding where the products are coming from. So a solution like this certifies where the product is coming from, cow by cow eventually. So as you can see, all these stakeholders all of a sudden have a relationship, which is a win-win relationship between them, just with the ability to share on a real-time basis data and analysis of those data coming from these solutions. So as you can see, the relationship is changing. So they are all partners of the same ecosystem, because at the end, the value that is going to be generated by this win-win relationship is going to be maximized if everybody acts as a partner. Obviously, there are some challenges. Not all of these comes very, very easily, right? There are some potential bottlenecks, challenges that we have to keep in mind. Every time there is a discontinuity, either technological, as in this case, or social or regulatory, there is where you generate a lot of value, and we have to grab this value, right? Maximize the share of the value we can get. But obviously, this doesn't come for free. There are things that we have to be aware of in order to be prepared and to overcome that. So the first point is about the business models. I think we have to here think very long term. We cannot have a short-term oriented view of how to compete, how to develop the service, how to partner. I think this is going to be a long process. This is not something that is going to happen in 1-2 years. This is going to be disruptive. It's going to be a game changer for every single industry. So we have to think long term. I'm telling this because very often, obviously we see a lot of startups. In 3 years, I think we have seen more than 1,400 startups. Very often we see entrepreneurs coming there, proposing their ideas, which are very much short-term oriented. This is not what we like. This is not what we want to invest in, because we know that they're not going anywhere. We need to have a long-term focus. The second element, talking about AI, obviously, that we have to think about AI not as an assisted intelligence tool, but as an augmented, and most importantly, autonomous intelligence tool. What does it mean? It means that we have to go from a scenario where AI is used to manage the same tasks, learning very little about that, to a scenario where we use AI for always new tasks, because AI learns from doing. And as a result of that, obviously, the outcome is much, much more valuable. A clear example is autonomous cars. So basically, AI is used to do tasks which are different time to time. Then we have to think about also the social and organizational impact of IoT and AI. Over the past 20 years, we have seen how mobile impacted to our day-to-day life, right? If I think how I was working or chatting or talking with my friends 20 years ago, completely different story, right? So IoT and AI are going to be much more impactful than mobile in the past, which means that we have to start thinking about how we are going to change the organizations. A lot of works will disappear as manual works, will be fully automated, right? So we have to think about how we are going to redirect those expertise. This is a tremendous, is a huge topic, right? Because obviously we want to benefit from the technology. We don't want to generate a divide, right? Social divide due to the technology. So we have to think, obviously, of adopting the technology, but how to redirect and also to reorganize the internal organization to get a benefit out of it. And obviously, there will be a social impact as well, because a lot of the application will be on the consumer side. Our quality of life will change, but the way we live also is going to be different. So think about, care homes, okay? Right now, a typical problem is that you never have enough nurses being able to monitor properly the patients. And so the result is that you don't have a service, or you have a service which is not in line with the expectations. With these kind of solutions, the problem will be completely solved, and the quality of life of the patients and their families will be much, much better. Also for people that have chronic diseases and live at home. So the level of security, everybody will feel much, much better because of that. And then obviously we will have some other challenges more linked to the technology itself. We are going towards a future where the amount of data is going to be massive. So first of all, we have to make sure that we are able to transport those amount of data, right? So the networks enabling the data transportation from the sensors to where the artificial intelligence engine is has to be adequate, has to be able to do that. And then obviously with the increase of amount of data, we will have problems related to cybersecurity and personal identity. Obviously about security we talked already a lot. So we know that there are those challenges, but every time there is a change, there are challenges. What is important is that we are aware of that and we get ready to manage those. And here I would like, it looks pretty dense, but I will be quite fast. I would like to give you some real examples of application in different areas. These are our portfolio company that we summarized in 5 areas, just to give you a sense of the applications that are available and the impact they are going to have on the market. So for example, if we start here on the left, industrial IoT, I think this is going to be a massive market. There's so much to be done. And here we have a lot of examples. Here, this is a company on the energy saving, with an energy saving focus. Here we have a company which is very interesting. It's about logistics. It's about, in this case, cold chain monitoring. So imagine a business whose main mission is to provide good food to their customers. Right? I'm not making names, but you can imagine who are basically the big names with a lot of retail shops, a lot of point of presence across the world that have to distribute food from their main warehouse to those shops to sell it to their customers. Typically, the distribution is made by third-party people. So basically, their main asset, which is the food, is not under their control in the most critical stage. So when it is distributed physically, basically collected at the warehouse and dispatched at the point of sale. So they don't know now what happens in between. So they don't know if the temperature at which the food is exposed is above or below certain thresholds that could damage or have a negative implication of their main asset, right? So now, and they don't know because the technology is not available until now. Now, these guys provide a solution which is able to monitor on a real-time basis what happens. So you can imagine this is a game changer. All of a sudden, they have full control of what happens to their main asset, which is the value they sell to the market. Sensei, for example, is a company that does predictive maintenance, is the example I made you before. So extremely important for all the companies that have manufacturing plants in order to avoid unexpected downtimes. If we look at health and well-being, I think here there's plenty of examples, right? You have solutions that basically track the way that patients inhale their drugs, to solutions like Cocoon, where patients can improve their quality of sleep. As you know, sleeping is a big disorder. 1/3 of the world population suffers from sleeping disorders, going from very basic stuff such as jet lag to serious and chronic disease where people cannot sleep for more than 1 hour a day. And by the way, the founder had this issue, and this is why basically he decided to develop this company. But what's really I want to underline here is that, again, multiple actors will benefit from these applications. because the actors I have in mind are obviously the local authorities, obviously the hospitals, obviously the doctors, obviously the pharmacies, because as you know that now there's a trend in the world where everybody is trying to solve the problem of the lack of quality of service and the high amount of cost, pushing to basically to the pharmacy level the interaction with the patient, right? Because this will give more proximity, much more presence. This is a way of doing. But obviously, again, the pharmacist without information will be completely blind, will be exactly in the same position as the GP, as the doctor, as the specialist. So you need to provide them insight. You need to provide them real-time insight, understand what's going on, and ideally, give them tools to preempt something bad to happen. I think we talk about smart building and smart cities, so there's plenty of applications here. This is a massive area because you have obviously all the local authorities which are very keen to provide better service to their population. And then you have some kind of what we call horizontal areas, which are obviously the security area, given the increase of data. Obviously, as I said, security could be a challenge, so you have to be ready for that. And we move from applications that go from, small scenarios to big plants such as nuclear and power plants, and infrastructure to make this happen. So I think the key message here is, one, basically we need all the actors within this industry to act accordingly, move towards the same directions. And the actors are three, basically, are the startups, are the authorities, regulators, and are the investors. The startups have to bring new ideas, new solutions. Obviously, they don't have legacy, so they have this advantage. So they have to be disruptive, bring forward something that solves a real need and is sustainable in the long term. Regulators and authorities have to support this, has to facilitate early stage companies and innovators to bring forward and develop their ideas. How do they do that? With grants, supporting them from the hiring point of view, supporting them from the tax point of view, providing them the infrastructure to go and develop their ideas. And then you have the investors like us. Even the investors need to have a different approach because this is going to be tough. I mean, it's not a simple app. As you can see, it's difficult from the technical development point of view because it's combining software, hardware, local, remote. But it's also difficult from the strategic point of view because we are talking about application business models that have to be forward-looking. So something that is not easy to think now. And so basically the investors, I think they have a role here, and this is what we do, not only in funding these businesses, because funding is a commodity, especially if the idea is a great one. But I think in supporting those ideas from the operational point of view. So I think the role of the investor has to change and go from a simple funds provider to somebody who obviously provides funds, but most importantly, supports from the operational point of view what the startups are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this. I just have a question around 5G and the sort of computing power that we currently have available when the Chinese obviously having some sort of an advantage there. How would you explain that, and how are we in the West sort of doing in terms of making those computers more powerful to do all this?
So obviously this is an opportunity that we have to pursue. There are countries where there is already a lot of activity going on, but it's definitely something that we have to grab because it's an opportunity. Is pretty clear why we should grab it, because we need speed, we need bandwidth, we need capacity to develop new applications. And this goes absolutely in the direction also to enable basically this kind of scenario as much as possible. As you remember, I put as a last topic as potential challenges, the ability to manage data. Having 5G, having this type of capabilities is definitely a must.
Thanks. It's really interesting looking at your portfolio list. We've heard about Razor Secure. If there were one or two companies on that list that you're the most excited about, what would they be? Do the sizes mean anything? Which are the ones that
So let's say, rather than telling you what companies I'm excited with, because it's too easy for me, because I know the numbers, I would prefer to tell you what are the three sectors I'm really excited about. One is manufacturing, two is security, and three is healthcare. Because of three different reasons. Manufacturing, because it's so behind every other industry. It didn't happen very much after PLCs in the manufacturing industry. Security, because given the huge amount of data that will generate due to IoT, we'll definitely need to be much, much better in security. And when I talk about security, I'm talking about security applied to transportation, as well as security applies to identify the individual, as well as security applied to big plants. Think about power plants, big electrical plants. And the third one is healthcare, because is a topic everywhere in the world. We need to, our average life is increasing, right? Which means that, obviously, as a result of that, we will need more and more care. So every government is struggling how to provide a better service, first of all, because there are no resources, and obviously in a more efficient way. So definitely these are the three areas, at least definitely for me, these are the three areas that looks most promising.
Morning. How do you see valuations in this sector going at the moment? Clearly you have a lot of early stage companies and it's easy to get swept up with the founders' hype, but revenue wise they're probably quite early on compared to the greater opportunities. So how do you manage that sort of process?
So as you know, we are an investor, so we manage the founders' hype pretty well, basically, in our negotiations. So let me answer to this comparing Europe and US first, and then maybe I go a little bit more into the detail. So first of all, as I think most of you are aware of, there's a big difference between EU and US for different reasons. Obviously, the valuations are different. The starting level of the valuation is different. So two comparable companies, one valued in the US, one in Europe. Obviously, in Europe, the value is lower. In the US, is higher. The second element, which is a big difference, is that the US investors have a tendency to be invested for longer period than in Europe, which means that also the value creation is higher than in Europe because of the length of the investment. But having said that, I think what really matters here, what is going to be a game changer, is filling a gap of funding capabilities. I'm talking about Europe now, of funding capabilities between seed and Series A. So at pre-seed stage, you see that these companies are well funded thanks to angel investors' support, friends and family. At Series A and beyond, they are well funded, because there are VCs, sometimes generic VCs, some other times specialized VCs. But there is a gap in between that is not covered in Europe. There's not very much, because in Europe, we are more used to look at the performance. What are the immediate, show me market tractions, show me revenues, show me, sales, right? While in the US, there's more focus about the view, the long-term view, what's going to happen, is going to be disruptive or not. So I think this is an area that we as investors, we have to take into account. So this gap, right? Because the companies have to be funded, because from a seed stage to Series A, they have to do it, right? So it doesn't happen without funding. So that's an important, I would say, time frame for the company life cycle that need to be supported. And as I said, not only from the funding point of view, because very often when we invest in these companies, even if they have a great, founding team, they are lacking of other expertises. They are lacking maybe the CFO. The vast majority of cases is not there, or maybe the business development manager is not there. So what you have to do, because I've been a startup myself several times, is not just provide money, because the founding team has so many things to do. They have to develop the product, they have to look at the market, they have to sign the contracts, they have to hire people, they need the money. So if you want to accelerate and de-risk the investment, which is what we do, you have to see what are the areas where there is lacking of expertise in those companies and provide that expertise. And going finally to your question, obviously, I think as always, the truth is in the middle, is not in the extremes, or may happen in the extremes, but not every time. Well, the probability to happen something which is a middle view is much higher. So I think that as always, founders don't have to be so keen in the starting valuation, but they have to be focused in the value they will build over time. Okay, and the investor should be not so keen in providing funds and getting a shareholding, but really providing value to these startups, which is much more than funding, and this is represented by the operation services.
Thank you. I think we'll pause there.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.